We got it right. One day I'll get it right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday, or good afternoon, or good night to some that are across the pond. Welcome to episode 2 of Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius. And I just wanted to say this is actually, we've been getting amazing feedback. And actually still getting names that people want for the show. So it might be one of those shows where it's going to have multiple names depending on who the audience or the viewer is. But this is an important episode. We've been hearing this topic over and over and over again. Why the F are we seeing shows and events and experiences as if it was, well, I said, what did I say? 2019 or 2015, and Bruno's like 1975. So,
time warp.
Huh?
You said a time warp.
So it is a time warp, but we're very, very lucky today because Liz, Bruno, and myself have a special guest, Brianna. And Brianna has been with us since episode 0.5, so that's important. Wow. So, Brianna, can you introduce yourself real quick for everybody?
Sure. Brianna Elenes. You probably saw me chatting from episode 0.5. I love to be involved in pretty much the discussion, whether I'm invited or not. So it's nice to meet you all. I've been in the events industry for, I think it's 16 years now, which is probably not that long to some people, but I'm very passionate about it. I'm also very passionate about technology and how we can use it to make a difference. So I'm happy to be here and talk about this subject, which I am very
passionate
about.
Yep. So just a quick housekeeping note. If you have not done this already, we don't want you to remain anonymous unless you want to. But if you want to have comments show up with your name on StreamYard, if you can go to StreamYard.org, .com/LinkedIn, or is it just LinkedIn, Liz, or is it just?
You can also do /Facebook.
Okay, /Facebook, and log in with your profile. That way, like LinkedIn user, we would know who you are, for example. And Ray Baum, this one is also for you because I know that you asked me for how to do that. So we're going to get started. I have a gut feeling that this is going to be a heated conversation, probably viewed by many on demand. So if you haven't already, please go to dahliaplus.com/Cue the Genius. And there you would be able to add in any questions you have for future episodes, as well as if you want to be our lifeline. Brianna is our first lifeline live, no pun intended, as well as to subscribe for any updates that we might have. And thank you for helping us bring 50 subscribers to the YouTube channel so that we can go live right before this session. Talk about like the power of us, all of us, not the three of us. So let's get started. And Brianna, I'm going to ask you to paint the picture because you have an interesting perspective. You see it from the supplanner side. I'm going to call you a supplanner for now. But tell us like what you're seeing and why are we in this time warp, this twilight zone?
That's the golden question. And I think you might have asked me this, or somebody asked me this, what keeps you up at night? And that was a hard question to answer, but I think ultimately for somebody that's been in the space, for as quote long as I have, it's a little disheartening to see some of the return back, like you said, time travel backwards to how we used to do things or how it was successful in the past. And that, depends on the industry. Obviously, we're kind of in a different spot now, but I think there's still a lack of thinking outside of the box. But I can't quite pinpoint why that is. And that's why I think we're having this conversation is what is causing that and how do we address it? Obviously I have my own thoughts on what can help stir that, but really the picture I'm trying to paint is how do we get prepared for moving forward, because we're just in recovery still, but what's gonna happen over the next 10 years? How can we take the industry forward instead of just, back to where it was?
Or stagnant. Or like we're stuck in quicksand kind of thing. So this show is called Cut the Shit for a reason. So tell us what's in your mind. Like, what is it? Like, spill the tea that's in here. Don't worry about anything else.
Spill the tea. Okay. Well, I mean, I would say there's being a millennial. I mean, I know that I hate to throw that out there, but it is true. If I put myself in the attendees' perspective or in the attendees' shoes instead of the supplanter side, why do I want to go to events? Like, what is, and I know that you guys probably have thoughts on that, but what is drawing me to it? And, there is a lot of data talking about how many millennials are in the workforce and therefore are prime targets for coming to events. And they are like going to take over in terms of the demographic that would be coming to events, but they're not really coming to events. And why is that? So I think we saw a massive shift to virtual, right? Like, because it's convenient. It's right here. I could log into it, come and go as I please. But as we start doing these events, hi, Peggy, what is drawing people in? What is doing it? And I think that we have so much innovation in the event technology industry that is like waiting to explode. And I think so much of it was focused on the virtual side. And there's a whole nother side of that. Like, what about, let's not cannibalize the in-person event, right? Because everybody talks about that. But how do we enhance it so once I'm there, I have tools that make it a more interesting and unique experience. And I think that we haven't seen a lot of that yet.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you talk about cannibalization, because like almost a decade ago, even PCMA was called out for when they started hybrid or their virtual for their events. They were told they were going to cannibalize the face-to-face. In my opinion, I think right now, with the show staying as is, same format, same design, wider aisles, maybe the furniture is a little bit different, that's cannibalizing the shows right now, the way that it's not moving. Liz, what are your thoughts? Because I know that you do both, but like, why is it such a big hurdle to change when it comes to events?
Well, yeah, it's an epic question. I think there's a lot of things that feed into it. I think in the spirit of cutting the shit, I think a lot of planners are excited to just be back to something they know. And they've spent the last 2 years stressing out and trying to learn new things and feeling like they don't know what they're doing. And so it's nice to call up that vendor you haven't given any business to in 2 years and been like, hey, let's go back. We're doing it, and be able to do what they know. So I think that's part of it. I do think, money drives these conversations. So I think that they need to make a lot of money back. They need to make money in the first place anyway. They're doing this a lot of times, and Dahlia, you said this before we went live, for themselves. The brands are hosting these events to showcase their products or to sell something, and they're not really thinking about the attendees. Right. And the other thing I think is that there is a big miscalculation about how much people really want to be in person. I think that we're seeing this flood back to in person, and everyone's so excited and feeling like, great, we're back. We don't have to do that stupid virtual thing anymore. And I think it's only going to be a matter of months before we start to see those attendance numbers drop off dramatically, especially if we're not doing anything new and unique. And then all the people in our industry I know the conversation we're going to have in 6 months is like, where's all the attendees? What are we doing wrong? You're missing the opportunity right now.
Well, you're missing the opportunity to design what they want, not what you need. So we're at like a I need phase right now, not that my event participants want or desire, or like you're pushing them in a different direction. So Bruno, what about you? Because I know you have very strong sentiments when it comes to trade shows, and you would rather be like in a corner with 200 people instead of 20,000 people.
Yeah, I've been writing about this topic for years. I can think back to, early 2000s, and I was disgruntled then. But to answer your question, there's a number of reasons why trade shows in particular, that industry just cannot face change. They're risk averse, for many reasons. A lot of big trade shows are, owned by associations, which are inherently risk averse. There's also a sort of military industrial complex built around the things that make up a trade show: the booth infrastructure, the rental furniture, the, even unions, built around these types of events. So it's very hard to move the Titanic, because then what do you do with all your stuff, your physical stuff, and your people that are built around it? And I think also all the entrepreneurs, a lot of them are gone, that were trade show organizers. When I was coming up, it was mostly entrepreneurs that had a really good idea and on a shoestring, started a trade show, and it grew, and then it got bought, and then they started another one. Those people are pretty much gone. Name one.
You remember the days of, was it Event Camp?
Yeah.
Like Dave Lutz and Sam Smith and, and Jeff Hurt and those guys, that was viral for a very long time,
And there's one more thing. I mean, the leadership is predominantly in a certain category of, who you are. And I think they've had it pretty good for a long time. And why change now? It's like, I'm going to retire in 5 years. So why should I invest in something that's going to turn the world upside down? I'm just going to ride this out and let the next group come in, the millennials, and see what they can do with this stuff, this pile that we've left them, which leads me to the millennial discussion. We were having a really good discussion before we went on air. That's a cool discussion.
So the funny thing is, you guys know what millennials are like. What do you think? What's the first thing they're going to do with the stuff?
Throw it away.
No, they're going to recycle it.
Recycle it, yes. Reuse it into something way better.
Exactly. Yeah. But they will throw it away in the sense of how it was used at that time, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to redesign. They're going to get the masses of those that want something new, different. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be big. This is the other thing that I was discussing with a trade show organizer yesterday morning, where she was telling me she does 40 shows, huge shows, where she's like, the numbers, the shows are not as big as they were. The numbers are almost as they were in 2019, but people are happier. They're more satisfied. And I asked her, what are the drivers for something like that? And she's like, because we made it more intimate and we're trying new things, which makes total sense. But it makes me wonder, and Brianna, I know that you have stats on this as well. How dialed in are event planners to the needs of their stakeholders? You talked about even attendees and then segmenting them, moms going back, and even exhibitors. Those businesses are also suffering. They're not resilient. And so what are you doing differently? Because they can't go back to the same show floor, bring back the same leads, and bring back the same ROI. So why are we doing this? I don't know. We need a magic wand like Harry Potter or something. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think I talked about this. I forget what, it was another conversation, and I know we keep going back to successful event, or who was successful when things went digital or virtual. And, corporate sponsors and corporate events did really, really well because they embraced that and maybe had already had some of that in their toolbox. So they were like, great, let's, do some activations online. Let's think outside the box, where our only source of leads and revenue is not this booth at the trade show. So the ones that is their only way, you know, when we're talking about exhibitors, that there is, like you said, they're not resilient. And so there's this like, let's just go back to what we thought worked before, but like, was it really working? I guess, were the leads actually resulting in anything, or was it just how many people walked by your booth and took your business card? Like, that doesn't really result in anything. And then in terms of demographics to events, I mean, yeah, we have a research team, you know, that I'm always fascinated in looking at the data, right? Because that doesn't lie, really, if you really look at it, you know. And yes, I'm a millennial, and yes, I'm a mom, but when I make decisions to go to events, take, you know, what I do for a living out of the picture. What's going to draw me to that? I mean, some of the decision factors are, hey, is this event 4 days long? Because I have, you know, a family, and maybe it's not that I don't have childcare. It's more that I want to be with my family, like, you know. And we talk so much.
You're still young.
You talk about mental health.
Girl, we got to talk.
Yeah.
Listen, I spent a long time not with my family when I was doing events, and I can name so many times I missed important things because I was, you know, because it overlapped with a really important event, right? And so having to make a choice sometimes is hard, and having flexibility, I think, is so important. So if I look at an event and it doesn't have a presence online, there isn't a, you know, an element of something new and innovative, like, I'm less likely to really, unless there's like a big keynote speaker that I've been dying to see that I can only see in person and maybe meet, like, and yes, it is not just a millennial thing. I think Rachel mentioned that it is, everyone's struggling with the why, but just speaking from personal experience, I think.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I'm just kidding about like that you're young and you want to be with your kids. I'm at a point where I'm like, yeah, okay. I did go through the whole mom guilt thing, being at shows, because like everybody knows, like I have been to so many events, and, you know, and trying to take that corner within the hallway to FaceTime so I can see a concert, etc., which makes me think, if this is one of your audiences or verticals of attendees, for example, you better create that space. And I'm not talking about just breastfeeding pods or whatever. Like, there should be more kid-friendly shows, family-friendly shows, especially those that are like on Memorial Day weekend or in the summer. I don't understand the flux of like events that are like at times when you know there's going to be graduations, when you know that. So you are actually, as an event organizer, if you are not keeping your attendee in mind, you're going to be competing not with other shows. Your competitive landscape is going to be competing with people's time, their families, their brain width, their mental health, everything of that. And that has to be part of the why. Come because of. And if event planners are listening, you know, I would love to, and I know all of us would, what's the design strategy at this point? Like, how are you mapping this out by event participant, especially your exhibitors, or your attendees, first timers, moms, you know, what have you, and what kind of elements are you trying to hook them in to come to the show? And also, like Brianna, to your point, if they've already canceled virtual or the digital, you know, component of their events because it was hard. Yes, it was hard. We don't do anything easy, and they just canceled it. I think that is a huge lost opportunity at this point. So
I agree.
And probably one that's not going to be realized for some time. Yeah, it's not going to be realized for a while, but
yeah, just the knowledge capture. Just, you know, I mean, there's value to the knowledge, and that just goes away, and you'll never recapture that. But I ask Liz to talk about millennials again, because they fascinate me, and their comfort with saying no and how that impacts our industry. You started to talk about that. And
yeah, we were talking about that right before we went live. And I am like on the the oldest cusp of a millennial, so I'm on that, like, kind of understand it, and
Mhm.
many times I'm like, I don't know who you people are. But one thing that I think we're
Depends
seeing,
on when you identify.
yeah, exactly. Not just with millennials, but I think we're seeing this more, as Rachel said and Brianna mentioned earlier, with everyone, is this idea that we don't have to do things the way they've always been done. I think that people went to events because your boss told you to go and you go. And if it was a week away from your family, then you figured out how to make that work and it sucked. And that was just part of life. And I think, I read an article yesterday about the moms of TikTok and how, like, because TikTok is like in the moment and it's very real time, it's not like Instagram where everything is already designed perfectly and there's one single picture. It's very much more about, like, this is real life. And I think that social media has really pushed that forward, is that people want to be real and they want to, then they have more ownership. And so we're seeing, I think, employers are saying you have to come back to work, and employees are saying, no, I don't want to. I don't want to be there all the time. And they're saying that about events too. I think millennials are attracted to, I think what made me start this conversation is we were talking about how, like, millennials want to go where there's a celebrity or there's an entertainment experience. That's not just millennials. Everyone wants to go to more fun events. They want to go where there's more entertainment. There's something to do. There's something super attractive. It's just, I think that millennials will say no if it's not that. And older generations feel like they can't, it's, oh, my company's been here for 50 years. I have to keep going and I have to keep doing it the same way. And I think it's going to be really interesting as the market becomes more and more filled with people who feel like I have a say in how I want to spend my time. And if I'm not enjoying it, then I'm not going to do it.
Then I'm going to quit.
Well, then, yeah. Got all these
quit.
yeah.
Well, yeah. And there's also been a sense, at least in trade shows, that if a B2B event was fun, it wasn't doing the work of business. You can't go and have fun. Or having fun was redefined. Like, having fun was setting up a bar on the trade show floor and getting shit-faced. That was fun. Yeah. And that's not what people want. Well, we never wanted it back then. It's really not what we want now.
I don't know about the shit-faced part, but I do think, like, that's such a dated mentality that, like, okay, having fun engagements with people is just, you're not focused on the business. That's what creates the business success. I think it's the long-term relationships. Those are the people that you're going to get business from, not the fly-by-night people that just come and grab your swag and leave. And, so I think that's a whole nother topic, just talking about how to excite that segment of an event, which is like the exhibits. I'm really, really interested in seeing how that eventually changes.
Or maybe totally changing, instead of making the exhibits more fun, just get rid of the idea of exhibits in your head.
They should be activations. They should be activations that actually have like a simple. No more booths.
Yeah.
Let's cut the shit. No more booths. No more aisles. Like
no. People are having heart attacks.
No green carpet or concrete floors because you didn't have the budget to put the carpet down. No more. So, like, if you do activations in the sense of it turns. Hi, Michael. Yes, the program is recorded. Good to see you. But think of it as activations that have a different expectation. Another word that I don't think people have realized, they need to reset their expectations, not as them as a business, but for their stakeholders. So exhibitors, for example, maybe they shouldn't even be called exhibitors anymore. But if you do activations that turn into a conversation or an exchange of great content, right? That is not a sales pitch, because right now, especially millennials, they will not want to go somewhere where they're being pitched at from one booth to another. No way. So, like, if you do axe throwing, if you do puppy corner, and there's someone there that would, just say, hey, how are you? And just start the relationship. It is a relationship experience, basically. You have to build that trust and then do your sales later, which makes me wonder, exhibitors and businesses always had a hard time. I'm not going to say failed, had a hard time in the follow-up of leads from trade shows. That was always the big challenge, the big hurdle, to a point where, you know, if organizers want to have a better brand loyalty with their key sponsors, key exhibitors, they're going to have to shift what they're going to give as services or value adds to their sponsors. Let me help you with the leads. Let's put some content together and, you know, put it as triggers for a focused target of the attendees, not like slam our database of 60,000 people with one email that talks about your product, because 70% of them don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. So like, you know, it might have to be where organizers are going to have to rethink how they approach the design aspect of the activations instead of exhibitors. And I know people love the booths, the double deckers, all of that stuff, but do they really though? You know, and have them be in partnership of something that has a long-term effect. This is something that you don't find in a prospectus at this point.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
It is.
No, go ahead, Brianna. You're.
I was going to say it's Lifeline. It's a double-edged sword because I think like early coming out of the pandemic, I believed, well, you know, gone are the days where an organizer can say, here's our trade show floor and, you know, we're giving you the space. Like, it's not our problem if you can't walk away with anything successful. I believed that. I believed the exhibitors, it was on them to change things. But I don't think that that's realistic. And that's why I say it's a double-edged sword. I think the organizers, to your point, have a responsibility, probably a need to really work through that. And some of the ideas that you just gave are fantastic. And I think that requires more work. It requires a different set of skills from, you know, people in that organization. But there's also people like us that can help with that.
So, and it's the people. Yeah. Go ahead, Bruno.
Well, I think what you're describing is, you know, if you think about when you have a cocktail party or something at your house, you know, the old mentality, to use that as a metaphor, or the current mentality of some organizers is like, I'm going to have the party, I'm going to invite everyone, leave the food there, and then I'm going to go down the street and leave, or I'm going to go to bed, you know. Now they're saying, wow, I invested in this cocktail party, I'm going to actually work the room. I'm going to make sure that, you know, this person meets that person and everybody feels good. And there's actually something happening in the room. Like, you know, I'm going to deploy technology. I'm going to do whatever it takes so that when people leave to go home, they're going to go, that was the best effing party ever. And that's the shift that we have to make, is don't just throw everybody in the room and walk away. Be responsible, take responsibility for what happens in the room, and measure whether people actually reach their objectives at your party.
Yeah. So the thing is, and Brianna, you touched on this, is the last couple of years have been super hard. Anybody in this industry is not in it just for the fun or the drinks or getting shit-faced, because that doesn't happen anymore. They are truly in it because of passion, because of the relationships that we have and that we're building, right? But we're planners. So like, we sit in the middle. We help the planners. We have suppliers as partners. Mm-hmm. I think that even though the last couple of years has been super hard, everybody went into like learning mode, virtual technology, all of that stuff. The next couple of years are going to be harder. First and foremost, because they're going to try to recoup revenues. So going back to the traditional playbooks, if you will, they learn so much that some of them have come to a point where they think they know it more than the advisors that they bring on, whether it's like you or it's like us or like Liz. And that whole fighting doesn't help for them to accelerate, to go forward, to think of new ideas. What if we don't have exhibits? What if we do have puppy corners? You know, how do you turn that into lead gen or like the cocktail party idea that Bruno was talking about. That is a lot of work, but we're not in this. That's what we're supposed to do, right? I would challenge everybody also to take a look at, why not bring in millennials or Gen Z, like Joe was talking about, to become the designers of different events. And that becomes incubators for new experiences, virtual, live, meetups, hub and spoke. I will never use the H word because that is another shit show that right there. But what I'm saying is, then you start
hybrid.
It's what?
She means hybrid. For those who don't know
like
what
that
you
word. It's awful.
Yeah.
It's very convoluted. But this is where you end up redesigning experiences, using Brianna's expertise, using Bruno's ideas of content creation. Content is going to be the driver here. I mean, going forward, not only for millennials. I got to tell you, I've been to many breakout sessions where I was almost going to like gouge my eyes out. If I see any more clip art, I'm going to just leave, you know? So I know we're wrapping this up. Ray is still on as anonymous. So I don't know, Ray. I'm going to have to, like, you know, do a screen share with you and troubleshoot what the heck is going on here. But Brianna, I loved that you were here. Thank you for being with us. I think it's fantastic. Bruno, what do you think? I think there's a part 2 and 3 for this, don't you?
Oh, yeah. And we want to let everyone know that Liz had another event. She didn't just drop off and go,
oh, okay.
Screw this, I'm out of here.
We're multitaskers. I'm out.
No, it's not the other kid. It's actually another virtual event that she's on another StreamYard channel. So talk about multitasking.
Probably still listening to us, you know. I think we should give Brianna the last word because
do it.
Thank you for bringing this topic to us.
Yeah, no worries. I think I really appreciate you guys even, you know, putting this together, because I think the only way that we're going to stimulate the conversation is to do these types of things. And we don't have all the answers, but I think, and I know that, you know, people come to these things to look for answers, but I think that's part of the thing, is we have to talk about it. And I already have some really cool takeaways just from having this conversation to share with my colleagues. So that's exciting. But yes, thank you very much for having me.
Of course, of course. And if anyone listening in wants to be a guest or a lifeline, or have questions, or want us to help you, you know, figure stuff out, we don't have all the answers. That's why we call in Brianna and all of our peeps. But go to the URL that is pinned, I believe, on the comments, and we will see you next Thursday. Take care, everyone.
Bye.